Of the program to find and identify, train, and equip moderate Syrians. Why did you go through the program?
Well, because part of what we have to do here, Steve, is to try different things, because we also have partners on the ground that are invested and interested in seeing some sort of resolution to this problem.
And they wanted you to do it.
Well, no, that's not what I said. I think it is important for us to make sure that we explore all the various options that are available.
That was President Obama on 60 Minutes this Sunday discussing the ongoing U.S. strategy in Syria. And joining us now, Chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee, Republican Senator Bob Corker of Tennessee, Mike Barnicle, and former advisor to President George W. Bush, Mark McKinnon, back at the table as well. Good to have you on board on the set in New York. We have Putin's presence growing in Syria and Iraq. And what do you make of the United States' response, or lack thereof?
Well, I think it's very evident to people who even haven't been paying attention that we've had no strategy in Syria from day one. At every interval when it was less expensive in every way to make a difference there, and at a time when there was something to make a difference with, we haven't taken steps. And now, with Putin stepping into the vacuum, with Iran assisting, with, by the way, a new resurgent and stronger Iran helping in Syria, it really leaves very few options. It does. I know there's a lot of discussion about...
I hear a lot of people saying it leaves very few options, but that's doing nothing is no longer an option. You look at the refugee crisis, you look at our allies in the region, whose regimes may be toppled. You look at what's happening in Europe. You look at Russia moving in there. I mean, even the biggest hawk, Lindsey Graham, will come on and say we don't have good options. Doing nothing is no longer an option.
That's right.
So what do we do?
Yeah, so I think there's beginning to be. There's been a memo on the president's desk for so long to deal with the border between Turkey and Syria, to create a no-fly zone, in essence, for humanitarian purposes, so people have a place to go within their own country.
Right.
I believe that's beginning now to get some increased capital. I think that...
Why hasn't he done it in the past?
You know, I do not understand. I do not understand this president. There have been long discussions with Erdogan and Turkey about this. It would have sealed the border. This has been going on now for like a year and a half. Would have sealed the border. I mean, many of the terrorists are coming in through Istanbul and across the border. It would have created a place where the Free Syrian moderates, of course, many of them have diminished now, could have located. And again,
what's the administration's argument against doing this? What has it been?
At every point, Joe. I mean, we have these conversations, whether it's Ukraine, they do not want to do things that are going to cause Russia to be to provoke Russia. They don't want to do things that might end up creating us feeling like we own Syria. I mean, there's so many things that again, along the way were small steps. I mean, you remember General Idris. I remember having a meeting with him in Turkey, and we had committed to let him lead the moderate opposition, for us to supply him with arms.
Right.
We couldn't even get him trucks. I mean, I have stopped going to the refugee camps, because I would go in and talk to people about what we were going to do for their brothers, their uncles, their sons, relative to supporting their efforts.
And we never did it.
Never do it. And so you end up losing all credibility, which we have in the region. But again, I agree, doing nothing is not an option. And I think you're going to see greater emphasis on the humanitarian side through a no-fly zone.
When you say you don't understand this president, what specifically are you talking about in terms of you don't understand? In terms of having discussions with him about Syria?
Well, what I don't understand, and you're beginning to see this play out, you've seen clips over the last 48 hours, just responses in the region. But the president, you know, it's sort of the big hat, no cattle syndrome. He likes to get out and make these strong proclamations.
Assad must go, Mubarak
But then he won't act on them. He just will not act on them. I remember having a discussion with him 2 August ago. We had intelligence inside Ukraine, which would have been so helpful to them just to know what Russia was doing in eastern Ukraine, and we wouldn't share it with them. We had, again, just giving them the intelligence, and again, he views that as us becoming operational into the conflict, and yet strong statements being made nonstop. I mean, we'd be so much better off. After this last situation with Putin coming in and totally changing the dynamic, what I've called for is then please don't make any more strong statements. I mean, please don't undermine our credibility anymore. Again, I think internally there's beginning to be pressure to do things that done a year and a half ago would have really changed the dynamic. Whether he does it or not, I don't know.
Are you now, what's the level of your concern now? There's a massive amount of weaponry in Syria,
right.
Russian weaponry, and increasing weapons provided by the United States to various insurgent groups. The possibility of an accidental conflagration between Russia and the United States or our insurgents on the ground. What's your level of concern about something like that happening?
It's high. Look, the TOW missiles obviously have been very effective against Russian tanks. We, had conversation years ago about trying to create some way of being able to give to the moderate rebels the ability to take out aircraft, but then you worry about it getting into a situation where they take down a civilian aircraft coming into Jordan or some other place. So a lot of concern about that. And, we don't really, we've done some things, much of which I probably shouldn't talk about. We've done some things to try to limit that. But no, it's, I mean, right now, it's going to get more and more oriented that way. There's going to be more and more chaos in the region. By the way, more and more refugees destabilizing Europe. I mean, if you really look at what Putin has done and what Assad has done, they have created a scenario where very much they're going to be part of the equation. As it relates to finding an end game here, something that, again, Mike, we get back to where we were in August and September of 2013. We, in many ways, saved Assad when he crossed the red line. And we didn't do the 10-hour operation, which, again, no boots on the ground. We didn't conduct that 10-hour operation. When we didn't do that, we, in essence, created a scenario with Russia where Assad had to be there to rid itself, again, of the declared chemical weapons. We know they have others still. They're using chlorine against their citizens today. But we, in many ways, have made him a central part of this. And what's happened recently, obviously, is going to build upon that in a major way.
Senator, how do you see this issue and other foreign policy issues playing out over the presidential campaign? Are these going to be on the radar screen? Should they be? And how does it tie into the conflict as you see it evolving over the next year?
Yeah, I think, look, you know more about this than I do based on the kind of living you've done in such a great way, but everybody will tell you that economic issues end up driving campaigns, not foreign policy issues. I think in this case, foreign policy is going to play a much role than ever. And I think, again, when you see 12 million people in Syria displaced, you see people flooding into Europe, I think that our place in the world, the country went through it, let's face it, after in the 08 election, the country as a whole did not want to be involved in foreign excursions. It's moving back as they understand the threats in these places, ISIS and others generating the kind of ability to affect us at home. Russia obviously is involved for the very same reason. But I think it's going to play a good role. And on the Foreign Relations Committee, what I hope we are is the North Star as far as what good policy is at present. And I have to say, in a bipartisan way, people very, very discouraged with the administration on Syria, just unbelievably discouraged for not following through.